Hey everybody, welcome to today's ELECTROFANS CONNECT meetup, where our topic today is on label versus self-release for electronic music producers. We've got an amazing panel here of JP Lantieri, Lorna Hackett, Wilson Costa, Future Phil, Felix Minite, Jeffrey Martin, Tobias Zaldua, and Jay from Email Recordings. And yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to cover the pros and cons, what the options are. We've got, again, our panel is extremely well qualified, having done a combination of their own releases. In some cases, doing their own labels and doing a combination of both, and also running labels. So I figured we could kind of just go ahead and start off by introducing yourselves kind of briefly. We can kind of go around the room. I kind of like to do ladies first. So, Lorna, maybe if you can kind of introduce yourself and yeah, what you've been up
Sure,
to and
yeah.
release wise, and yeah,
Thank you, Kevin. My name is Lorna Hackett in real life, and my artist name is Lorna James. And I'm a pianist and a music producer, and I write sort of ambient and classical and house music. And that's basically it. But yeah, we've just been talking before the recording started about a track that JP and I are just about to release on his label. So that segues directly into JP.
Mhm.
JP, yeah,
Yeah, so I'm Jean-Pierre. My artist name is JP Lantieri. It's my real name. I'm an artist, as Lorna just said. So I'm a producer. I'm DJing also, and I also own a label which is called Flamesy Music. It's a progressive house melodic techno label, and that's true that this coming Friday we have Lorna and I. We have a and another famous lady, Jan Johnston. The three of us, we have a track coming out, a song coming out this Friday. So I'm very happy.
awesome. Phil, it's been a while, so how about if you jump in?
Mhm.
It has been a while. Hey everybody, I'm Phil. I go by the artist name Future Phil. I make progressive house and deep house. See what I've been up to lately. I've been writing and rewriting an album project for like 2 years now, and it's still not what I
It's
wanted.
normal.
So it'll get there one day. You just gotta keep plugging at it. So, but other than that, I've been helping some artists out with their marketing, social media, stuff like that, kind of behind the scenes. So kind of doing a little bit of everything right now. But yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Had to pencil you in for one of our when we talk about social media
Mhm.
focused topics for next meetup. Cool. Wilson?
So, hello, I'm Wilson. I'm from the band Humans Out Loud, and I have two labels, Silent Koalas and Being Humans. I've been DJing, I'm a producer, graphic designer, communication guy, so I do a lot of stuff.
You also play like saxophone and a lot of different instruments, I think,
Yeah,
too,
I
right? Yeah.
play I play clarinet and saxophone.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Felix.
Cool.
So, hi, I'm Felix. I produce an artist as with the alias My Night, and I also DJ. And for this particular panel, I think could also introduce a new sort of identity, which is I'm a master's graduate from Hong Kong Baptist University, and my research background is on new media and net labels, online music labels. I also do co-own Summer Melody and NuHouse, two labels which are more focused on deep and melodic progressive house and trance.
Great. Perfect for the panel. Yeah. Mr. Martin.
Hey, Jeff Martin. I do a group called Visors. We're signed to ICEA Virgin Music, and I do all kinds of stuff. I'm writing for A-listers out here in LA now. Um, I'm super busy. It's great. I love it.
That's right. You just moved to LA, right? How's
I
that?
did, yeah.
I'm sure that's been great so far for you, right? It's super.
It was hurry up and wait because at that level, those people they don't need hits like I do.
Ah, okay.
So so it's hurry
Yeah.
up and wait, and now it's really now it's a lot. So it's good. Yeah.
Cranking it. Awesome stuff. Yeah. Tobias.
Hey, hi everybody. I'm Tobias Zaldua. I was going to say like I'm a DIY artist, but everybody's a DIY artist. So
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I like doing. I like a lot of genres, so this is always like a problem because I don't really like to think about the genre that I'm writing in. So I'll solve that problem later. At the moment, I'm working on something that's primarily spoken word and drum and bass. Though yeah, I'm not really a drum and bass producer by any means, but I'm just loving the feel of it and the way it works. In my other life, I edit music documentaries and used to do some video editing for promos back in the day. And more recently, some composing some music for some British artists, which got exhibited recently, which was a blessing because I've been a bit absent from the scene, and then they decided to get some really good gallery space, and so that kind of was a really good boost for me. So yeah, I just flip between the two. So if I'm not working, I'm sort of I consider it work, but everybody else thinks I'm just faffing around doing these little musical ideas. But
Same
I've
thing,
got to
man.
tell you, I mean, everybody knows that
Yeah.
the music thing is the hardest work. You know, for a client, it's like you don't have so much investment, but for yourself, it's like life and death, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jay.
Jay, hi guys. Yes, I am Jason, owner of the Electronic Music Lovers Group. Um, and we are three labels, radio station, podcast, mastering service, publishing company, and soon to be promo pool as well. So yeah, lots of things under one roof.
Wow.
That's so cool. There's nothing you guys don't do. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's busy, busy, busy. Lots going on for sure.
All right. Yeah. So what I'll do next here is I'll go ahead and share my screen. I have a little thingy here. Let's see. Can you guys see that there? A slideshow?
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So again, our topic today is, of course, label versus self-release for producers. We're going to look at the pros and cons. Yeah. So I figured kind of start off situating everything kind of basically and just look at like what are the options for producers when releasing tracks and kind of figured pretty much there were four of them. So, either release on a label, self-release, kind of mix and match, like do some releases on a label and some self-released, or create your own label. And then for the first one there, releasing with a label, kind of got a few things here for this one here. So, what are the things producers should look for or look out for in a prospective label? And then how much does size matter? Maybe we'll kind of just chew into these first two actually together. Like, in some case, people could obviously think, well, is a bigger label, like Black Hole Recordings or like Armada, you know, above and beyond, and June to Deep. So people could say, wow, if I get in with these guys, it could be necessarily, blow me up. But in some cases, could it actually be um, better to go the smaller route? So yeah, kind of open it up. So as far as like things producers should look for or look out for in a prospective label, Jeff, maybe kind of throw the mic to you to start with that one, if you have any
Yeah,
thoughts.
when you talk about the size matter,
Yeah.
it does in a lot of ways. But the big thing is you want to look for distro. So
Mm.
who are they distributed by? So if it's a much smaller distro, you may not get the results you expected. Um, I found that that's what I was looking for primarily when we were looking to sign. But then we also were looking for the freedom to do what we wanted to do. So finding all the right things. So that's what we were looking for is distro primarily, and we found a good label that had good distro. So and just yeah. So that's what we're looking for.
Sure, that makes sense. To me, that would be, yeah, one of the things that, if you're a smaller producer, that would get you turned on about working with label, thinking, okay, we can get like massive reach.
Yeah.
Let's see, anyone else want to jump in on that?
Yeah. In terms for someone like me who's electronic music producer, so each track I release is a different different output. So it
Mm,
could be some tracks I released on some labels that I pitched the track to, and they accepted. Some tracks I release self-release just as an artist. Some tracks I release on my own label. So it's a mix. It's a mix of everything. What I'm looking when I pitch to a label, when I pitch some of my tracks to a label, what I'm looking if it, preferably a big label, but the bigger they are, the less inclined they would be to respond to me
Mhm.
yeah.
because they cater for the big artists first, and then the smaller artists they either ignore them, or if they are not already introduced to them, they will not even see them. There's a question of visibility there. Uh, the bigger label, of course, size matters because if you, as you say, if you have, if I had the chance to be signed on the Anjuna Deep or Black Hole, I would have. It's good for my profile. It's also good because as it's a big name, I have a better chance to be to have my track shown in front of more people, a bigger audience. Uh, but there are some pros and cons because sometimes if you manage to get signed to a bigger label, they would not make much effort for a smaller artist because they would prioritize their big artists. So sometimes it's better for smaller artists to release on smaller labels, not too small either, because if they are too small, they don't have
Mm,
Reach. Yeah.
mm,
any reach, yeah, and sometimes they don't have any budget for promotion, or they don't do any work, and sometimes a mid-sized label could be a good option because they are already established. They're known. Their name is known. They are not super big like Armada, but they are big enough to have an impact on the scene, especially if it is a niche scene. It could be deep house, progressive house, tech, trance, pop, whatever. So in that case, it's easy. It's the best of all both worlds, I would say. Mid-sized label. That's my opinion. A mid-sized, but even a mid-sized label are not easy to reach because they receive thousands of demos every week, literally. So for yours to be listened to, it's a bit of a challenge. But these labels often listens to the demo, and if your music is good enough, they can say yes, I release you. And it happened to me for some of my tracks. I have been released on maybe 20 labels or so. So this can happen. My label, for example, is a small label, but I'm always trying to put a maximum effort, like I would expect from a bigger label to do. So promotion, PR, DJ promo, social media, videos, uh, advertising, etc., etc. Um, who else has
yeah.
something to say about size
Yeah.
matters?
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
the, so I'm hearing a couple of things there, JP. So I like on the
Mhm.
niche aspect, the advantageousness of that. And then it sounds like too, that's kind of where I was potentially gonna take this to, and I made these slides up, like the relationship, yeah, can be a closer, maybe more intimate one,
Mhm.
in some cases versus the big boys, where they're just wanting to, I could see where they just want to focus on their main, like you see like Armada, like they tend to have their kind of clicky, like Ruben de Ronde, like the Dutch boys, they kind of, but they're also like they have that scale. So, and so kind of going into point number three there, what are the most important things you want to make clear before signing with a label? This JP kind of started to bleed into this a little bit. Like, for example, is expectations on promotion, budget, who will do what work in terms of promotion, et cetera. I know we've discussed this kind of thing in some of our most recent meetups too, where JP had mentioned, like, again, like some of the bigger labels that you would hope for, you had great expectations, but you felt like they didn't really do much for you. Then I want to circle back too with Jeff, who I think too is a big proponent, a label guy. So JP, I know
Yeah.
because you did have some thoughts on that. Maybe kind of briefly we can start with you there.
Um, Jeff, you start.
Mm, okay, sure, that's fine. Okay, no
Oh,
problem.
sorry, Kevin. Sorry, I was so ready for JP. What was the question again? Sorry.
Sure, yeah, yeah, no problem. Yeah, just because I just say that because I know JP mentioned that before. No problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, the most important things that you'd want to make clear as a
Yeah.
producer before signing with a label,
For us
expectation.
for us it was really specific. It was it was the marketing and the push, right? So like I'm willing to give up some royalties when I know that the label is going to put between $5,000 and $8,000
Okay.
into the marketing when the
Oh,
song
that's big.
releases. Well, it is. Yeah. Well, yeah, and yeah, it is. It's a lot actually. So, and you could get by on a lot less. And depending on the song, and the feature that we use, because we use a lot of featured artists, that does kind of go higher and lower. But the thing is, where am I going to get that money from? I have a really great example of a friend of mine who wanted to go it alone, and he ended up spending $25,000 last year, of his own money to release a few songs, and now he's regretting it. And we all have ways we want to do things, but that was the big thing for me, was when I was talking to labels, was like, what are you going to put behind it? And so that's what I was looking for. Plus the relationship. You could get signed to the biggest label in the world and just not get along with your A&R person. So we get along so well with the owner of the label. We could not be in a better position. But we got lucky. We were signed to a bunch of other labels, didn't work out. But we got lucky in this one.
Excuse me, are you signed exclusively to this label?
No, actually not, which is great. So if I take a song to them and I submit it, we did a hip hop song last year, and the label didn't feel like they could really do much with it. So we did release it on our own, and then it actually tracked really well. So yeah, so it got some sync, which was great. So yeah, so it's not exclusive, which is great. I mean, they get first right though, first right of refusal though. So
okay.
Did it turn
Just out
out,
of
Jeff, that they
curiosity, who are you signed to, Jeff? Sorry.
So it's Icons Creating Evil Art out of Sweden, and so they're kind of under the Virgin Music
Yeah. Okay, that's
blanket.
what I thought
Yeah,
you said earlier. Yeah.
yeah,
So they're part of that umbrella. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. It's great, and actually they since I moved to LA, we're starting a LA branch, or a US branch of their label called Icons LA. So that's what we're doing a little bit too.
Yeah, I was curious too, Jeff. So are you both like signed as a independent artist through visors, and you're also kind of like doing direct work as the label itself? Are you kind of
Yeah.
like doing both together?
I'm doing both, only because I'm so good at A&R these days, because I deal with so many features, that when I was moving here, I just asked them. I was like, let's get this thing cracking here, and he said, yeah, let's do that. So we've got a bunch of artists. I'm actually signing the guys from Oingo Boingo, their new band. So I'm signing that they're the first release.
Wow. Is that more
Yeah,
rock oriented? Is that like new wave kind of stuff?
new
Is it
wave. Yeah, it's new
okay?
wave. Yeah, they're pretty new wave. Yeah, but the label I'm signed to does so many different things. They do hard rock, metal. We're the pop group, so
Yeah, I think you guys do some new disco too. I think I got some
yeah,
promos a few years ago. Yeah, keep me. I'd have to check you guys out in the LA thing because,
yeah,
yeah, LA is kind of the biggest scene in the world for entertainment. Yeah.
yeah.
Jay, I know you've got probably a lot of thoughts on all this running EML recordings and all your children and child labels underneath the parent label.
You know what? I think that I guess it depends on what you class as a big, medium, and small label.
Hmm.
Because for me, being able to, yeah, I've never at the moment would be able to put in anywhere near £3,000 to £8,000, into a release. I wish. Um, I think as a producer, as an average producer that's kind of just kind of breaking into the scene and is looking at your kind of average, you know, bedroom label, which is what most producers and most of us are. Um, I think that you should be looking at whether they're future proof, because the music landscape is changing so fast, so rapidly, as is every other landscape around us. And so, what I would be looking at is this label kind of sticking to, kind of old ways of doing things, or is it embracing, new technology? Is it embracing AI with its marketing and the way that it's kind of operating things? Is it transparent with me? Do I feel that I can trust the label? So I think those things for your average producer will probably be more or as important as the size of the label itself and what they're going to be doing in terms of marketing and promoting you. Um, so I guess that's me as a producer. That's kind of what I look at.
That is an awesome point. It reminds me kind of like a
Hmm.
job interview where, the company turns it back to the employee. It's like, do you have any questions for us? And then you kind of interview them. Where they say, where do you see yourself? Where yourself headed? Well, then you say, you as the company, where are you guys headed? That's really cool. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on that one?
Maybe I could jump into
Yeah.
it. So for us as Summer Melody and also the sublabel NuHouse, we consider ourselves relatively small scale, but at the same time, because of our position, especially on the genres of melodic progressive, which we are mainly based on, we have a quite a unique sort of like community culture because we do support our artists surrounding the whole genre. Even though maybe we also have like re artist relationships with other labels on the same realm, like Immersion, Soluna, Synth Collective. I think we just sort of help ourselves because at that time when we established our own labels at like 8 to 10 years ago, we originally have a label group which is now closed down, which have released a lot of different artists' work, which also surrounds on the whole genre collapse. And at that time, we decided to have our own labels on our own end, and for that part, I think that for artists who sign to like labels like I've just mentioned, I think that for us is not necessarily on the most important on how the track sounds or how does it sales or promotion stuff, but we kind of like helping the artist to grow, and we do provide feedback like on their mixing, on how their mastering could be better, and also with that kind of like supporting each other, our cost for working on a release actually is pushing quite low because we will not pay the cost for them to pay for the mastering themselves or the promotion for themselves. We just covers our own with our part of royalties, like a 50-50 split, and it's already enough to help them to promote it, like to certain DJs and artists, and as well as we do use social media as promotion platforms. And of course, they also have the responsibility to share themselves as well. But I think for us, because we have this kind of unique genre-based culture, I think this also maybe provides a particularly different perspective than those on larger labels or mid-scale labels.
Yeah. Felix, I just wanted to touch on something you said there. What I find is really important about being signed and having, we have label mates, we have all the relationships that the label has. That's another big part of being on a label is their relationships. I'm not going to get those relationships in a year's time. You know what I mean? They've been building those relationships for years. So being signed to a label helps you with the relationships that they already have. Full stop. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
and also let's be honest, like it is a flex, right? Like it is a flex when you're like, oh yeah, well, I'm signed to this label and we have all these people. So the networking is vast on that. And that I depend on networking. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
So
I
there,
agree
guys,
with that.
sounds like you're talking about like what I call the intangibles, right? So sometimes,
Yeah.
I've noticed this too, my own experience with electrofans. Like sometimes money, relationships where money doesn't change hands can have almost an infinitely greater value for you as for me.
100%.
In
Yeah.
Electrofans' case, as a platform, but for you guys as a label, as a artist. So Felix, just to kind of cap on what you were saying there, so you kind of have like a set um, idea, like you kind of let it be known out of the gate that okay, we're going to do like 50-50 like you have a set number. Like so the expectations are you get will kind of co-promote this together like a 50-50 then, huh?
Yeah, I would say so. And of course we our approach on for the artists to sign with us is relatively organic right now. Not necessarily we are reaching out and have them
Mm.
saying that sign to us, sign with us, that kind of approach now. And it's also like providing the artists their own freedom. If they wanted
Hmm.
to sign with a label, that's their choice. If they not, they could do it themselves. But you may have missed out that we have the resources to, even though it's not that high resource, but it's still kind of a way for them to promote themselves just
Yeah,
through a label platform.
like that.
Yeah, so many parts of that. Yeah.
It's
So
like a co-op.
Yeah, yeah,
oh
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And also because of how media rapidly develops right now, we have internet, we have social media. It's not very hard to release music right now, but
No.
with labels as a platform, even though whether you regard it as really a platform to help you to step up or not, even though it may not bring you a lot of reach, but still, a
Yeah.
label is a platform really helps artists to grow.
Hmm.
Sure. A lot of pieces of the pie there. Yeah. Yeah. So kind of moving on. So pros and cons. So, what would you say, would be, what are the pros of signing with a label? And Jeff, I think we're going to start with you because again, I mean, I think we can all see the advantages of a label, but I think you
Yeah.
were, I think Jay will go next too, but, yeah,
Yeah.
Jeff, maybe starting with you.
The pros have always been for me when I first started doing visors. The pros were I just like the old label model was we're going to take all your money, we're going to make you look good, you're going to feel good, but then we're taking all your money in the end.
Mm,
It's not the same as it is. That's not the same deal as it is now. I will gladly give you my royalties from streaming, which is nothing for you to put $5,000 into the release.
get your
I
name
don't
out there.
care.
Yeah.
I don't care. What are you going to get? $40 out of the streaming? You know what I mean? I don't care about that. So it's not the same world we once lived in. I was signed to Sony in 2005 where at the end of the day we got an advance and everything and it all had to get paid back. So we just lived the high
Yeah.
life for like 2 years and then dissolved. That's not going to happen here. The pros are they have the relationships. They're going to dump a bunch of money into it, and then if they need to recoup, they can recruit. But they're going to service all of my stuff to many different sync agents, right? So they probably service my stuff to 10 different sync agents once the song comes out. And then they're also they have a better way of getting your songs onto playlists into like the streaming playlist. I could go pitch myself and not get a single one. The pitch comes from the label. It's a whole different world. So that's
Okay.
another pro. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I don't mean to take all the time, but also another pro is that same friend of mine I mentioned the other day, or just a minute ago, who dumped all that money into it. He wasn't backed up by a label, so all these playlists were botting his song. And so,
Mm,
so he's getting all these botted playlists and he has to go out
Yeah.
and remove them. You don't get that with a
Yeah.
label. We've never been on a botted playlist ever. It just doesn't
wow.
happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see those advantages too. Sort of like a false, I call it like a force multiplier where
Yeah.
you can kind of like, yeah, you get picked up on playlists or you get, if the label pitches you to kind of like aggregators who can pitch multiple playlisters and then the virality and scale, and like you said, the top of the hour reach, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And also the fact that taking on things is just one little unknown individual versus like a label. I mean, a label, even if you're, to me, even if you're just like some, Mick Records, whatever, just because you look like a label already makes it look in some ways maybe can lend
Absolutely.
that credibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. JP raised his hand. Yeah, sure. Go
Did
ahead.
I? I
That's what that's what
I
I
did.
got.
Yeah, but actually,
Or maybe you accidentally bumped the hand raise
yeah, I
button.
bumped my hand, but
Okay.
I wanted to intervene anyway because and some other
Sure.
advantages of signing to labels. If the label is serious enough, they can hook you with some other artists. They can ask some artists to remix your song, or they can ask you to remix some
Okay.
songs from other artists. So you make connections like this. They can invite you to play to some label nights.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
also a very great thing to meet new people, to have a new
Yeah.
audience. So the contacts they have, they can provide you is if it is a serious level, is something which can seriously help you progress in your career. That's one
Yeah.
of the advantages also.
Yeah. And JP, on that note, our first single Fine Line came out and he got Oliver Nelson to remix it. I didn't know who Oliver Nelson was. It's one of our biggest streaming songs to this day. It still is doing a few hundred a week, and it's not a lot, but I mean, it's for me, it's great. It just keeps doing it. I didn't know who Oliver was. I would have never had him remix anything, and we signed, and they did it. So yeah,
Yeah, and for context too, buddy, that's one of the first ways we found Jeff Martin and Visors was from
Mm.
that track Jeff just mentioned on Spotify. A really cool, awesome vibe track. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
What about the cons? Anyone have any?
Yeah,
AP
I
has
would like.
mentioned it. Felix, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to jump in on that, if you don't mind. So, in terms of cons, I would like to bring a little bit of my academic background because of my own thesis and also my previous graduate project of my bachelor's. I did some research in terms of like how the one main con, which also Jeff did mention of it, especially for the traditional music labels or large labels out there, is the type of control. I would say this is the one of the main cons. Especially
Mm,
there are different kinds of controls out there. I mean, the first one would be contracts. Contracts literally control how the artists go, and especially to major labels out there or the traditional models of such labels because they have a lot of different powers. Like Jeff did mention that they have the reach, they have the pitch, they have almost everything which can help the artist, but at the same time, the artists themselves cannot do anything because
Mhm.
the control is based on the label. And of course, this is mainly for the traditional model, which nowadays may be a bit more flexible with the help of internet and social media, which the artists can gain their control from that. But still, artists can't do anything if they do not have a decent base on their end. Without a label would be very hard for them. But at the
Yeah.
same time, if the label has more control than the artists themselves, the artists cannot do anything unless they receive material from the labels or waiting for the labels to promote for themselves.
I
That's
think
a
the
good
thing
point.
is,
Yeah.
you can have, sorry, you can have the biggest, you can have the best product in the world, but if you haven't got an audience, then there's no point, you know.
Hmm.
And that's the issue that I think one of the cons of being, kind of doing it yourself. Um, and you're generally going to rely on some kind of distribution company, unless you're going to literally go to all of the different stores yourself and like, create an agreement between each store, upload your track along with all the metadata like to every single store. You're gonna have to use some type of distributor.
yeah.
And one of the issues with, like, let's just say, for example, you used DistroKid or TuneCore or something like that. You're going to pay a fee every time you send a release off. You're not going to have a direct line of communication. You're not going to be able to pitch directly into, Spotify and Beatport like you can through a distributor. So there's you got more control, I guess. You got more revenue coming back. Not that any of us get a huge amount really from downloads and streams. Um, but I think there's more cons than there are positives.
Oh, you mean of
Okay.
going the indie route? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, going the
Hmm.
indie route,
Yeah.
but then of
Yeah,
course
and
I'm
hold
going to
that
say that, aren't
thought
I?
too,
Because I'm
Jay,
the
because
label, so
yeah, I think you're one slide ahead of us. Yeah, we're going to cover that in the next slide, I think. There. there too. Yeah.
That said, regarding the cons of going to a label, nowadays it's a bit different from the way that Felix was described. Is nowadays, many labels they don't sign artists who don't have already a follower.
Mm,
Some followers, unless the music is really good, but it's they either sign just a single track because the music they love it, is super good, or if they want to sign an artist, then the artist already has a big following. He's already successful. So the artist has more leeway that he used to have like 20 years ago when he was signing to a label nowadays. Uh, but regarding the cons, some labels. That's why the artist, when he sign a track to a song to a label, has to check what this label is doing, not signing blank, say, oh, a label wants to sign me, it's wonderful, and then nothing happens because some labels they don't do any work. They take 50% or so of the
Yeah.
royalties, if not more, and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't do anything. They just release it, and then crickets. No, I've been through there. I've signed some tracks
Oh yeah.
to some labels. They don't even promote it on their own social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the
yeah.
bare
yeah.
minimum. I'm not sure that they even send it to some DJ promo pools. That's also some part of the minimums. I mean, some labels they don't do anything, and you say in that case I better do the job myself, which I do because I do more than some labels. The artist who goes the indie route and who does self-release, and then he does all the promotion, PR, try to find the PR to pay for a PR, to pay for DJ promo pools, to pay for advertising, because nowadays you can advertise yourself on Facebook or even TikTok. I've seen that. So an artist who is doing that is de facto a label, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
JP, I could
Yeah.
see a couple
Yeah.
reasons why maybe a label might not do much, for the artist. Could be like you mentioned earlier, like if they're not big enough, they feel like maybe it isn't worth it. And also just sheer scale, like if they're doing like
Yeah.
five
Could
releases
I?
every couple
You
of
also you
weeks.
also have some scammers there, some labels who sign as many artists as they can. They just
Yeah.
put them
Yeah, yeah,
out and
yeah, yeah.
waiting to see if the artist is doing a bit of work. Then they get, as they don't do any work, they will get some revenues, and they just play the numbers. There are
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
That
yeah,
few,
yeah.
few
Could,
labels like
could
that.
I say something, please?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, of
Wilson,
course.
please. Yeah.
Yeah. um, you know me a long time, right? And when I began, it makes me old, like 15 or 16 years ago, I was like a mouse in a labyrinth, right? Uh, so as an artist, you are in this idea that a label can save you. That's not the case, and that's not the role as well of a label. Yeah.
That's a cool point. I like that.
It's a
Yeah.
good point. Yeah.
I mean, my job today, I've been learning for 10 years and more, and I'm still learning. I took back school and, to learn more. And during the 10 first years, I don't believe today that I just understood what that means to be in this industry, right? My job today as an artist is to find someone from a label that will be a teammate, basically, that will understand your universe, that will translate this universe to theirs, that will, you know, find the perfect storytelling between their universe and ours. So that's what I try to do in my own labels. I mean, yes, we can do videos, we can do everything, but if you don't have, how could I say that? And it could be even, not videos that you shoot yourself, but even free videos, right? Non uncopyrighted. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But the fact is, in all ways, as a label, you have to understand your artist. You have to hear your artist. You have to understand the needs of the artist. And the needs are not necessarily, okay, we need money. Because you can, if you don't have money, and it happens a lot in this industry for a lot of labels, you have time. Even if you are
Hmm.
alone, you can give time for a release. You can give skills for an artist. That's why I took back my studies to have more skills, right? You can give a lot of things, and you can understand and hear your artist and try to find a way. You can give advice, and we have to be clear about something. A lot of artists, and I was one of those ones. They don't are beasts of marketing, right? They usually are pretty bad, and I believe that today the role of a label is to give an advice. Okay, you are this, you want this, and if we do this, right? If we go this way and with that storytelling and with that image for you and with modifying a bit your branding if it needs, but just as an advice, not an obligation, just as we can help a lot the artists. And it takes a lot of time actually for an artist to understand that. It takes a lot of time to a lot of labels to understand that. And I had to go out of the industry to understand that. I had to work as a communication guy for other industries to understand that. Because the problem today, and you got a lot of people out there saying, "Oh yeah, I can tell you how miracle recipe. Oh, you're gonna be big," and that's not like that. It takes years and years and years to achieve, little by little, some scales in the industry, and in my sense, that's very uncommon. An artist that will blow up in 6 months. And generally, if they blow up in 6 months, they fall as fast as they came.
Yeah,
right?
that's very true. I agree with that. Yeah.
To have a real career, and I believe so. I'm thinking to the big ones, right? You studying their past, you just realize that they had 10, 15 years of, for fuck's sake, what I'm doing? What am I doing, right? Because the blow up just came with time and track after track after track, and maybe JP said that, but no, or one of you, Jeffrey, maybe, that you meet someone and then someone and then someone, and your network just goes. And as a label, and a small one, because I don't, so I lead small labels, right? Hearing your artists is the key. Phil, you've been one I heard. He came with an idea I didn't think about and told me, "Hey, if we do that, what will happen?" And I said, "Okay, we go." And 2 million streams, right? So
that's great.
But I was like, my artists, they know things that I'm not aware of everything, right? I've used to work with people, they thought they knew everything, but that's not like that. The moment you think you know everything,
You've lost.
you can stop. You can stop.
You've already lost.
You can quit. And I heard, and I'm hearing every artist, and I just made a video for one of the compilations, right, to present the tracks, and I get to pass, and I sent to all artists, right, and they told me, "No, that can't be." Okay, I do another one. You know what I mean? So that's, I believe that's more a share with people than. And as an artist, I need that, and I'm okay with JP. When you are on a label that seems to be mid or quite big, and they, you are the small one, and they don't give a shit about you. So better to be with a little label that will understand who you are, what you want, your needs, and that will try to think about what maybe you will not have the same numbers, but at least you are creating something coherent. And I believe I said everything because it's been long. Sorry.
No problem, Wilson.
But Wilson, you touched on a lot of there. That relationship between you and the label it's got to be, reciprocal. Like we believe in the same thing. And like, our label has a strategy and it's years in the making. It's like, we're going to dip, right? We're going to have so many listeners at this point, then we're going to dip down and we're going to go up and down and up and down. And you have to have a strategy and you kind of have to believe in the same thing. And, so yeah, I agree with that.
That's what I was gonna say, guys, to recap. Yeah, so it sounds like relationships, and kind of just moving to the last point there in the slide. So how can you facilitate success, set yourself up for success if you're a producer looking to sign with a new label? It sounds like from what based on what Wilson was just saying there, kind of just making sure that kind of like in a relationship, like dating and marriage kind of thing, like making sure that both parties, A and B, are, you in terms of the relationship are looking for the same things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go
okay.
ahead.
Yeah, Phil, please. Yeah.
So I just want to say this. I think there's a couple ways you can set yourself up, and this is from personal experience. The first thing is if you're dead set on getting on a label, you need to be very comfortable with being told no and being rejected because it will happen a lot. You will
Yes.
send out
Yeah.
emails, you will pitch
Yeah.
songs, you will talk to people, and they'll be like, "This doesn't fit, this doesn't work," and you can't take that personally. Not everybody loves every single song that's released. I mean, there's 100,000 songs released a day on Spotify, so it's like not everything's going to be amazing or everybody's cup of tea. You just kind of have to deal with that and just not take it, take it to heart. If you believe in your track and you believe in your music, you will find the right spot for it. You just have to keep pushing it, pushing it out there. And I
Over and
think
over.
over and over, exactly. And I think the second thing too, and this is another thing that happened personally for me, so I feel comfortable speaking about it, is that you need to be very like professional in how you speak to people and like being able to answer emails and do things that are, you want to be a reliable partner if you want to find a reliable partner. Like there are a couple of artists that I won't name because I don't want to be that guy, but I've sent them emails trying to give them opportunities and stuff like that and just crickets, ghosted. And then they'll circle back like two weeks later, what happened to this? And it's like, well, you didn't even do the bare minimum, so I had to pass on you. It's nothing personal,
Yeah.
but this is my reputation too, as well as it's yours. Like you gotta be willing to play ball at the bare minimum. So I think
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
having like good business and professional sense and also, not being afraid to be rejected is the best ways to kind of get yourself prepared to find a label.
Or
Day by
Amen.
Phil,
day.
That's awesome feedback, Phil. Two of the
or
biggest
Phil, you
ones.
just learn it. You learn
Yeah.
you're like, wait, I'm getting turned down over and over and over. And you just like, okay, because
Yeah.
Yes.
you may not be ready for the rejection, but it's going to come. So you just have to keep going
It's
with that.
every day we are
Exactly.
rejecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like at EML, I have our A&R guy is so awesome. He's really, really good. So because he'll CC me in to most of the emails when we get a demo. Um, and he's brilliant. If we get somebody that sends something and I listen to it and I think, oh, that's awful. Ryan won't say that. He'll be so kind to them and he'll give them really constructive feedback and he'll tell them what they need to do, what it is that they're not doing. Um, and I think something else as well to set yourself up for success is, and this might be controversial, but I, in this day and age, I wouldn't really pay too much of attention to how you're doing on Spotify fraud. Because
Well, not to interrupt, Jay, but just as a case in point, we at ElectroFans, and I used to be embarrassed by this, but I think we have like 27 freaking followers looking from the other day. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah,
we're successful, still on the
Yeah.
rise, but company. So, yeah.
yeah, the data you can't trust it. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. You can come across a track that you've never heard, and you look at it and you think, oh wow, it's got 2 million streams, but immediately, the first thing you think they're fake. Nobody trusts the data on Spotify fraud anymore. It's
Yeah.
just it's dead. It's dead in the water.
That's a whole
So
meetup topic of
Yep.
itself, right? Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Streaming
It
and the
is.
social media things. Yeah.
But don't
Yeah.
be, don't
Yeah.
be, yeah, don't, if you're only getting a couple of hundred plays a week, don't be put off by that. Don't expect
Yeah.
big things.
I mean,
Can I
Yeah.
flag up something? Can I flag up something a bit off? I don't know if it's off topic.
Yeah, please, Tobias.
I think what everybody's saying about the expectations of a label is really interesting because I've worked with a couple of labels, and my expectation was sky high. It was like something from sent from heaven. I expected so much, and it turned out they weren't going to promote. I was going to do the promotion. I had to put in the funds and so forth. So
Oof.
the good thing for me was that it added a lot of kudos just to say you're on a label, just to have it on your page, just to,
Yeah.
so you feel this kind of burst of enthusiasm and energy, and you get a very a very noticeable difference when you talk about your work when it's on a label. I mean, I don't know if this is still
Yeah.
true. I think it's still true.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've always thought that's the main pro. But if you pick a good label, I think if a label that really understands an artist, then it is that symbiosis that I think Wilson was referring to. You have to have a long-term relationship, because I think what Jeffrey was saying that, when you work with a really professional label, you're in a very complex machine. You've shortcutted your route. You've just jumped on this like luxury cruiser, and it's going to take you places. You don't have to do much. You don't need to steer the ship. You'll be an absolute fool if you try and take over the rudder or the tiller. You know what I mean? You don't do that. You let people do their stuff, and then they in turn expect you to deliver your side of the bargain, which is
so well said.
your tunes.
So well
Yeah.
said.
And I was just going to one other point, again slightly off, maybe on top here, but the relationship has to change over time. I think if you're an independent artist and you think you've got it all sussed, this is you're doomed to disappointment, because nobody's ever got it all sussed.
Yes.
I saw a really good quote from Laurie Anderson. She said, as an artist, there'll come a point where you think you found your voice. You've been working for years. You've got to a point where everything you do is kind of, yeah, this is really me. Oh, I'm really in the flow. And she made this really good point. She said, just because you think you found your voice doesn't mean it's the best one for you. And I think that's where the label really, really click in to say, this is something we can go with,
Yeah.
And then that symbiosis can really click into action, because you may be going on a path that's like, it's really me, man. I'm really feeling this, but actually you're just going way off on a tangent, and it might be good for you spiritually, but then you have to weigh that with whether it's commercially of interest to a label and so forth. So I think this dynamic has to be able to change over time. So
Yeah.
I think a good label has to, if it's a good relationship, they don't have to do anything. A good label will understand that things will mutate over time, and maybe the artist will turn into something they don't like. Maybe the artist will turn into something they could never have dreamed of. I remember Neil Young got sued for the album Arc Well, didn't he, by his record company, because he didn't sound like Neil Young, this kind of stuff. But I love this, I love the fact that things can get so kind of so much conflict can be built into that relationship. But yeah, I don't know if that's on topic.
Well, I have a point to that real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I have a point to that. So when we left Sony because it wasn't working out, I spent a full year looking for a label, and all the labels were saying nothing you do is it doesn't go together, because we work with so many different features and I write for the features. They were like, nothing is cohesive. We don't know how to brand you. And then when I found ICEA, the selling point to him was that nothing was cohesive.
Wow.
Wow.
So he said,
like
keep doing what you do. And because I was like, well, I'm going to put it together as a band and get a singer. And he said, no, keep doing this. And we've got this plan for the next few years. And so I got lucky, because all the other labels were like, you need a sound and a branding and all this. And I was just like, we don't have that. So yeah. So just to that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So really I think you guys are going, this is the fit. Yeah. Really comfortable hand in glove kind of fit thing. And Tobias, what you said reminded me of, what Jay said earlier too, about like where future proofing and like realizing that things are going to evolve, and like can you evolve together? Yeah, so I figure, maybe we can kind of jump ahead to kind of shift here, big shift, from label to self-releasing. So maybe open up the floor for some of you folks that have done kind of, I think Tobias and JP and probably Phil have done, actually Phil, because you were one of the main contributors to an awesome joint article where we had like 8 or 9 producers a few years back. You remember, for the electrofans.com blog, where we talked about, that was kind of the brainchild of this kind of whole meetup too. Like, what are the advantages of going your own route in terms of releasing versus the label. So yeah, maybe Phil, we can start off with you. So what would you say are the most important things to keep in mind? And that's kind of a big one first. So yeah,
Right.
what do you think are the most important things to keep in mind if you're going to self-release versus going with a label?
So I think the first thing to keep in mind is that you have to remember if you decide to self-release, you are on an island. You're by yourself. There's no promo team, there's no sync team, there's no publishing team, there's no, it's just you. You have to fill all those roles. You have to make the music, you have to promote the music, you have to push the music out to, you have to find DJs to promo it out, you have to find sync agents to pitch it to. Everything you have to watch your own budget. That's another thing that Jeff brought up earlier is very important. You have to be able to stay on budget for the release if you have a budget, which you should have a budget that,
Yeah,
by the way. But it's like I think a lot of people kind of see a couple cases. Like I know, for instance, in hip hop, there's a very famous case. Russ, the artist, he started just putting songs out on SoundCloud years ago, like 10, 15 years ago, just putting out like a song a day or whatever, and just use that to build momentum. And but he was doing everything himself. He was A&Ring all his songs himself. He was making his songs himself. He was going through and setting up his tours when he was self-paying for his tours himself, selling tickets, all that. Like he was the team there, and it's like I think one of the things that for myself when it comes to self-releasing is that I enjoy being able to kind of do those things on my own from time to time. Not on every track, but like if there's a track that I don't think fits a label or fits, it doesn't have a spot, I'll put together a quick little video. I'll throw, some promo under it, run some ads, whatever, and just let it out there and see what happens. But I think if you're trying to do that from a 100% all in all me standpoint, you kind of need to strategize more than just putting stuff out there and seeing what sticks because that is honestly not fun. I'll say it from experience. It is not fun. It can be very, very hard work, very depressing at times. And
yeah,
because your music is like, for all of us, I know you guys get it because you're all producers or you're all involved. Like it's like our children, it's a piece of
mm,
ourselves. And when you put it out there and it doesn't really hit, that is a terrible feeling, because it's like I
yeah,
put everything into this and nobody's,
Yeah.
vibing with it. So you have to be very confident in yourself and your sound in order to make that happen when it comes to self-releasing. And I think doing it 100% of the time. Now, if this was me 10 years ago, I'd say just do what you want, but me now, I think it's better to have a mix of like, let me self-release the stuff I want to release that maybe doesn't fit the label, and then let me find a place that can, service my other stuff, the stuff that'll help me find new fans, that'll get me to a community, that'll help me be able to start cultivating my own kind of area because I feel like a lot of bigger artists, they almost have their own like subculture behind them. They have diehard fans, they have people
yeah,
who maybe discover them through another artist who now have gravitated into their area. And I think even if you're not a huge artist, that's the kind of thing you want. You want people to find you, to find your music, and then you want them to kind of hang around and gravitate. And
yeah,
so it kind of becomes a numbers game at the end of the day. Like if things aren't reaching where you want them to. And I know it sounds terrible, like not everything's a metric, not everything needs to be like quantified, but you have to be able to sustain yourself and like live a life as well. So if you're
yeah.
releasing a ton of money and you don't have like a regular job or something like that to fall back on, you can't do that forever. Like nobody can live with no money. That's just,
Right, right,
how
yeah,
life
right.
is, unfortunately. So it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, I think you need to realize that you are the team, you are the label when you self-release. You are the only one. Like, if you take a day off, that's a day off that
yeah,
nothing's getting done. If things happen, if you're sick or whatever, like you have to realize there's no team that's going to be working behind you, pushing this. So when you come back healthy, you're good to go. Like
yeah,
everything is on you, and it's a lot of weight, it's a lot of responsibility. But it also, if you're crazy like me, it's kind of fun sometimes. So it's like you kind of have to
yeah,
weigh, do I want to, deal with this or do I want to find a label who I trust who will do these things for me that, and kind of go that way. So you have options, but I think you need to definitely realize that like you are in your own boat. You are the captain
yeah,
when
yeah.
you are
That
self-releasing.
Stand
Phil,
or
when
fall. Yeah.
yeah, Phil, that one and only song that we self-released, I didn't realize how much went into self-releasing because the label's done it all. And I when they ask me for assets, right? So they
Oh
say we
yeah.
need the
Yeah.
we need the masters. So when the label's like we need the masters, the bio between you and the feature, then all that. I was like, that's a lot, man. I do that every time. And then there's the added part, all the other stuff with distro and stuff. I was like, that's enough. I did it once. I'm not going to do it again. It was,
I like
it's
that. It's
just
kind of
it's
like
so much. It's so
hard
much. Yeah.
work. Yeah.
starting swimming in the Pacific Ocean. You get hit by
Yeah.
one like little like
That's
undertow. That was me with the one time I jumped in the Pacific to try to do some swimming. I'm like, okay, that was exactly like that's enough. I swam for maybe a
Yeah,
couple
that's enough.
minutes, one bit of undertow. I'm like, okay, this is
Yeah.
not. I think Phil, you
Yeah,
kind of
because
covered
there
pros
is
and
not.
cons together.
Uh,
Like the advantages, you can do your own thing, the freedom, but the cons are, as Jeff just said, oh, you got to do everything yourself. JP.
yeah, about doing everything yourself.
Yeah,
So you have to do the distribution, like you mentioned DistroKid or
yeah, yeah,
TuneCore or AWAL or even SoundCloud or there are many ways to distribute. You put your song in one of these places and they send it to all the stores and the streaming services in the world. That's not nowadays. It has become easy for an artist to do this. It was not the case 10 years ago, but
right.
now it's quite easy. Yeah, but then the artist, when he's doing this, he also has to. If he's just doing put the distribution, then nothing will happen. He has to do a lot of promotion on social media. He has to make his own artwork. The good thing is that he's free to do the artwork he wants. He's free to do the videos he wants to do the text he wants. He doesn't have to ask the label to do. And he can put his own visual identity in whatever he releases. Whereas if he sends it to a label, it will be the visual identity from the label, not from himself. So that's one of the advantages of doing by oneself is that the artist can put his own visual vision on his music. And nowadays, you know that the people they want to see images and videos, so that's an important part of what the artist can do. That's one of the pros I can see.
Yeah,
The
artistic
artist has a
freedom.
total,
Yeah,
yeah, artistic freedom. It has total control on all the aspect, the artwork, the distribution, the promotion, even the advertising, the whoever he wants to contact, he has the freedom. The cons, of course, he doesn't necessarily have the same reach that a bigger label would have.
yeah, yeah,
I think as well as give now that technology is advancing, I think one of the other advantages, if you are doing it yourself, is you can leverage AI. So you can, it's not that hard to build an AI agent that will essentially do all of your marketing and promotion for you. You can design and teach an AI agent to go onto, database. If you can find a database that's got DJs, radio stations, you can, if you know what you're doing, you can legitimately, train that agent to go scrape that website, get all the email addresses that you need for your style of music, and even get them to send the emails, on your behalf. So, the gap between what a label can do and what you can do, kind of, self-releasing, it is getting smaller. But you're if you do it alone, you're not going to have that collaborative opportunity. You're not going to have that networking opportunity that you do, through a label. So that's something else I think to look at as well and bear in mind is the AI is making so much of a change in our industry. It really is.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that will be the object on another panel, I think. And
Exactly, JP and Jay. Yeah,
I
that's
think
something
so. I
that
think so.
there's a whole thing to say.
that's one of our next upcoming meetings. And I was going
Yeah.
to say, Jay, I really want to talk to you
To-
offline about that and about YouTube marketing and
it's
streaming.
It's
Yeah,
funny you were talking about how AI can help the artists. I just run across a site which is called managers.ai, and it's
Oh, wow.
to help. So I haven't checked this site, but it looks like they are using AI to help the artists doing all the management work by themselves. But I haven't been there yet. But it looks like AI is really something which is coming to help. I
That's
hope
really interesting, man.
help
That's
us.
a very interesting
managers.ai.
development, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
there was that point when Spotify first launched, when actually you did feel, not when it first launched, but there was a sort of sweet spot where it would put unknown artists with a similar sounding high profile artist quite
Mm.
regularly. And you did actually feel like
Yeah.
if there was some sympathy with those
that.
tracks and your style, you really had a real chance. And I remember getting a lot of good results quite early. And then the algorithms changed, and it really is just promoting this labels, key artists, and really that dynamic has gone. But that sweet spot was there with. I remember Napster did something quite similar. I got so many streams when that first was going on, and that real magic of what was there has actually been taken away from us. So we're sort of getting a slightly distorted view of how things could be with that technology. So what JP said, that sounds, if that can be leveraged to really get to the long tail, that'd be incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, to kind of cover, like, just kind of want to cover briefly, like, how to do that. Because I think some of you guys, I think Jay kind of maybe touched on this previously, right? Like, say if you did, I mean, I'm sure we could go for like a couple hours on this just in itself, but just if you guys can maybe share briefly, like if you were going to do your own, like, how exactly, I think Phil has probably done this too, right? Like, say if you want to set your own stuff up on Bandcamp, DistroKid, Spotify. It's a matter of distribution, I think, right?
It's very
Without a label.
different. Be careful because Bandcamp is a store. So
Yeah, that's right.
DistroKid would put it on or TuneCore or whoever, they would put it on 100 scores. 100 stores, sorry. But Bandcamp is only one store. It's a very well done for the indie musician, but it's only one of them. If you are on Bandcamp, if you want to go to some other stores, you need to go through. You still need to go through DistroKid or whoever.
Yeah, you do, especially with stores like Beatport. I don't know how it works with Bandcamp and in distributors, because with Bandcamp you can set your own price. So I don't know if that's still the case. So I don't know how. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. It might be wrong, but I don't know if distributors distribute to Bandcamp because of the fact that
no, they don't.
Who chooses what price? Yeah, no, they don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I imagine Bandcamp is the most direct, like you, the musician, as if we call it the seller, as it were, of your music, is probably the straightest shot, right? You just set up your thing, and you probably have to say, yes, I agree that I own the copyright, right? And that's probably but yeah, to JP's point. So if you go through DistroKid and you can get on, maybe not Bandcamp, but all the Spotify, Beatport, Apple Music, Shazam, all that noise.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically it's just getting set up on a distributor and they kind of shoot it out to all the other outlets, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, you've got the option of selling it yourself on your own website.
Sure, yeah.
And I
that
think,
touched sorry, that touched on
Go ahead.
something Felix mentioned earlier too about like which could be a whole other deep dive too about like exclusivity and which is kind of a maybe one of the downsides of being with the labels. They can kind of sign you to maybe they even kind of own the rights, as it were. And in terms of
It's
like if you
publishing.
want to do a collab, you got to go
Yeah.
through your label to make sure they authorize that, right?
Yeah.
I would like to also raise one thing when it comes to self-releasing, and I think that would be the common fallacy, because when a label doesn't accept your track, you decide to self-release. I think that is a fallacy, because it is not necessarily because some of the labels that you're looking up to maybe more on higher end labels, because they don't accept the demos, then you decide to self-release. I think that should not be the common case, because there are other labels, like, for example, like us, we are not large scale, we are relatively small scale, but we do dedicate our time to artists who really puts their effort on the tracks, even though, especially because when it comes to self-releasing, I think a lot of us have already touched that they need to have a base. If they don't have a base, whether they are self-releasing or not, it you're just throwing eggs to a wall instead of really distributing music to some potential audiences. And I think that they should consider smaller scale labels instead of ignoring them and not choosing them because they don't think that they will help them. But any opportunities help.
Yeah.
Even though labels is not large, they will still provide help when it comes to music, because they select music rather than select artists who have a large base. Especially for us, because we do consider a lot of releases for newer artists, especially debuts. They don't even have an audience. They just started music and then they decide to release, and we provide that platform for them. if they consider self-releasing at that start, I don't think they would achieve success unless they really suddenly have a shoot suddenly to have the popularity all of a sudden, which is a rare case.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean the landscape right now is just so oversaturated. It's just so oversaturated. You know what I mean? So like self-releasing into a void is really hard if you're brand new. Let's say you have a fan base and I'm going to self-release now. Well, that's fine.
That's a
But
really good point too, Jeff. Yeah,
but
very
yeah,
good point. Yeah.
you could have the best song ever written of all history, but if no one hears it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's why people have got to think out the box. And I'll give you a good example. And right at the bottom here, you've got tips that you can share
Yeah.
that will
Yeah.
work when self-releasing.
Sure,
So I
please.
think people have got to think outside the box. So a good example was I was scrolling through Instagram yesterday, and one of the accounts I follow, is asking people about do you know any up and coming DJs that I should it was somebody that's got like I don't know, 1 million followers. For whatever reason they've just put this post out. There's got like over 1,000 comments. So what people are doing on there is they're tagging people that they know that are kind of really good up and coming DJs that maybe have got like a little bit of support. Maybe they do like some little internet radio show somewhere. So what I did yesterday, I spent 2 hours. I just went through and had a look at all of these different profiles where people are tagging people that they know that are DJs. You go to their Instagram account, bang, there's their email address. You know, just from spending 2 hours, I got like 250 email addresses for DJs that are kind of trying to break through the circuit, and it's got the genres that they DJ in. So, thank you very much. Database,
Jay, you're a
Yeah,
freak.
yeah.
Sorry. No.
Definitely.
But sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to think outside the box and
That's all I do.
yeah, it's
All I do.
and find the opportunities because they're there often in our world online. You've just got to,
Yes.
think smart.
That's you just hit the nail on the head, and it's a little bit off track, but I create the opportunity, generally speaking. And then once you're positioned, then you see the opportunities coming across your desk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But
It's about
if you're
mindset.
not if you're not positioned correctly, they're just going to go right past you. But now that I've positioned myself in a good spot, I'm getting opportunities more often. But if I wake up tomorrow and have no opportunities, I'll go make one. I just figure it out. And like you said, just think outside the box. I like to refer to it this way. There's a huge line of people knocking on that door. I'm going up the trellis. You know what I'm saying? I'm going up the trellis because I'm not going to wait in that line. It's just, so there's that strategy involved. So whether it's with the label or on your own, if you have a good mind for that, strategizing and kind of thinking outside the box, you should do a little better. Yeah.
Well, to kind of circle back on something that both Felix and Phil said, yeah, I actually liked Phil's point about how I thought it was interesting how, maybe if you have some tracks, and Tobias, I totally am thinking about maybe some of your work, maybe that, could be like more avant-garde or kind of like not fitting into a certain thing, then maybe indie releasing is a good way to
Mm-hmm.
go. But then Felix had a good kind of counterpoint to that, to point out that, well, just because, you haven't found any maybe labels yet where it was kind of the right fit doesn't necessarily mean you have to go on your own. Maybe just keep looking for the right match. But I think
Mm-hmm.
some big name, I think actually, and Juna Deep originally kind of those guys created that, I think, because to try to make it look more, maybe what Jade's mentioned too, even some really huge names out there, Marcus Schultz, Above and Beyond, whatever, Armin van Buuren are looking for this hot indie underground thing to try to push that because maybe their fans are getting tired of the same faces, Ruben Deronda and these other, whatever like the big names are. They're okay. They want to see the hot new. I saw this article the other day. It was in Washington Post or New York Times or something. Dance music's making a comeback. I'm like, did dance music really ever go away? It's like
Right.
marketing, marketing, marketing.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, I mean,
um,
you got to like to your point, Kevin, you're never going to just have the same consistent artists until they become 100 years old. I mean, you always have to be looking for the next thing to come in. And
yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, if you're running the production side of it, like Colbert or like any big box media or Electrofans, it's programming. You have to be, or a label, unless you're going to stop and lay down and give up, you have to constantly be thinking about what's your next content going to be in feature. But to kind of close out on the self-releasing thing, then, so do you guys have any particular, maybe Phil, I'm thinking, or anyone else, like any useful tips you can share of some things that have worked particularly well for you when self-releasing?
I just want to
Wilson,
kind of jump in on what Felix was
yeah.
saying earlier, because I actually do agree with him that you should not be adverse to smaller labels. I mean, I
Hmm.
think smaller labels are some of the better ways to kind of not only generate a community and fans, but also to figure out like you and your career and your sound. Like the smaller labels give you a chance to release things and to just kind of start building up to, the type of producer you want to be. And so I think it's definitely a
Mhm.
good thing. But I also think if you are going to self-release, which is it's not a problem self-release, but I think you need to self-release with a plan. Like
Hmm.
every track should have a strategy behind it. You should have some type of idea of how you're going to market it. Like maybe get you and your friends together, find your friend who's a video editor and have them edit up some video for you, or maybe go out and run around and film your own video for 30 seconds to put it on TikTok. So I don't know, come up with something that fits the track. Like I think there's just like Jeff said, there's too much oversaturation. You can't just put a track out there and expect it to do gangbusters. Like it has to have something to draw people into it and to go people go, oh, okay, I see this, I hear it, this is
Yeah.
cool. Let me check out this artist now. Like you can't just, drop
Yeah.
stuff and just hope and pray. You're never going to really get anywhere that way.
It's
So I
too
think you need to have a
saturated.
strategy and a
Yeah.
plan with everything you do.
That's a
And they
great.
even take strategies. They take strategies and throw them. They throw them at me all the time that they see happen. So like there was a TikTok thing that happened and it was an accident and they had a song blow up and they said, Jeff, why don't we do this with you? And I said, I don't have time for that. Like
Yeah.
but yeah, and it was an
Something
accident.
Yep.
Yeah.
something I'm really bad at is calendar, and it's really important actually,
Yeah.
because if you don't manage your calendar, so you can't have any strategy.
Yeah, I
Yep.
agree.
Yeah.
I feel like I have
Yeah.
in the house here, I feel like I have that like that detective thing with the threads going all over the place because of how I'm connecting the dots. And so like you said with the calendar and everything, and yeah, I have a journal here where I write all this stuff down so I can go back and say, "Oh, I didn't talk to that manager the other day. Let
Yeah.
me, so I
Yeah.
have to. I have to."
Yep.
And I know it, and I'm still a bit bad at it, but I know it, and I know I have to go a bit better to that. But
Yeah.
um, so it comes, yeah, as I was saying before, everything is, understanding your artist. So if you are a label or as an artist, many artists as well have too much expectations
Mm.
of some labels,
Hmm.
and they don't see what is in front of them. Uh, and as an artist, I just hope this, to see the opportunity that someone can give to me, or on the other side, uh, me. So we as a label, right? Trying to. I believe in my artists and not in the first numbers, right? Because you can't put out some music and even as Jeffrey said, uh, even if it is the best music in the world, you can't expect to have directly numbers. And that's this work of long term that will come up actually with the artist or with no matter, right, the project or something, track after track after track. It's a mutual belief in the work of the other, and it's a mutual trust.
Hmm.
Sometimes it just don't work. We said before, and sometimes it just go well, and you arrive to a point that the artist isn't hasn't an artist contract with you, but is signing every track with you, and that's really really fun, and because you begin to collaborate even as an artist with that person, right?
Yeah.
And to me, I give value a lot more than, some big guy coming off. Oh, okay, I had, 100,000 people following me, and yeah, okay. So, but we
Hmm.
just don't glue
Click.
together.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these big bucks outfits, like they can have 100,000 million. And I think to JP's point, then they're actually going to do less for you. Yeah. Yeah. So any other last tips, you guys, for self-releases that you've tried that really work
I
well
actually
for
have
you?
one more that I
Sure.
just
Yeah.
thought about.
Please. Yeah.
So I think it's important too, especially if you're a DJ and a producer, is to do something locally, like go out and play at some of your local venues if you have them. If you don't, see how much it costs to rent a venue or to rent a space and have an event, maybe sell tickets or whatever, because having a local place not only to play, but to like meet people that are in your area that will then support you,
Hmm.
start telling their friends, start doing things like that. It just really helps. I know from personal experience when doing some small touring and stuff here and there and like, playing in some other countries and stuff like that, ticket sales are honestly more important for a lot of venues and places like that than anything you do online because that really
Hmm.
dictates whether or not people are going to show up when they book you. So if you
Hmm.
have any kind of experience or proof from there, that might help you get gigs even if you don't have big, tracks out online or you don't have big label connections, stuff like that. So you never know. So I think being able to do something local can really help because also too, it gives you a place to play your music out to a crowd that doesn't know you for the most part and has no exposure to you. So you get real-time feedback, which is very
Yeah.
important. Like
Hmm.
you get feedback from people who aren't producers but are just fans who have a different mindset.
They're
Because I
my
think
favorite people.
sometimes, oh, go ahead.
They're my favorite people.
Yeah, yep, yeah, they are. I think sometimes people get so caught up with like presenting things to producers and having producer brain that when a normal person who's not in the music industry hears it, they have a totally different outlook on the sound and the track. And I think that's valuable feedback for you to get because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, they're the ones who are dancing to it, listening to it, buying it, going to see you. So you need to be cognizant of like what regular people think about your music. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hearing
they're the most
from
important, if you ask me.
I was
Hmm.
just gonna say, Jeff, hearing from new voices, like my best friend is not involved with music stuff at all. He works in like medical pharmacy stuff, but he's given me some, sometimes I feel like it's brutal, but some awesome feedback because again,
Yeah.
because like, it's kind of like, if you always listen to the same things over and over, you already know, we all already know like what our social media groups, it's probably really similar, but to get the fresh perspective is
Yeah.
yeah, invaluable. Okay, so yeah, sort of like
Maybe a last tip,
yeah.
if you don't want to sign with labels, create your own
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you
Yeah,
go.
and
well
create.
There you go.
that's kind
Yeah.
of jumping up ahead there, I think, Wilson.
Yeah,
I was gonna say a mix of label and self-release, but yeah, while we're there, so I know well,
and
all you
and
guys originally did, but Wilson, yeah,
mm, and
speak to that.
create a real story with amazing people and amazing
Hmm.
artists. And um, the more you understand and you begin to understand the other artists and what they are hoping, and and the more you discover from yourself, because they are quite a reflect of yourself, actually.
Yeah.
And working with them uh, takes you off of your own projects,
Yeah.
and you see things a lot brighter and bigger, right?
Yeah.
And otherwise, you can create storytelling, you can create a sound, you can create a sound with your artist, and you can find yourself actually. Being Humans is the label basically of our band, Humans Out Loud. Humans Out Loud. I was Wilson Costa before as an artist, right? And I didn't throw it back, but it's almost today is almost the manager, nothing else, right? Humans Out Loud is the big project for me as an artist with my mate Edwin Jack. And if you see how we appear on the online and on the networks and stuff like that, the project is a lot more managed if I can say like that.
Hmm.
The image that we have is a lot stronger because we've been learning a lot working with the
Yeah.
other artists, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, if the last tip to me, if you don't want to sign with other labels, grow up your own. And
Yeah.
someday, uh, I was like, I don't want anymore. And one day, someone from your network will come and will say to you, "Hey, mate, I got this artist. I want a remix," and then you go back to sign,
Yeah.
and you will create a family of labels around
Yeah.
you, and then you work with these people. And when one goes up, you go up. When you go up, they go up, and that's the
Yeah.
same with your
Yeah.
artists,
That's the
actually.
idea. That's
Yeah.
the
It's the same with
idea.
A rising
ELECTROFANS
tide
and,
lifts all boats.
Yeah, that's it.
EML
Absolutely.
family. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
JP met Lorna. Yeah. But so as far as like guys like if you were to one word to like do like a mix of like label and self-release, are there any particular? I kind of just figured I'd throw this one out there. Maybe like obviously you have to be wary of like exclusivity things, but
Hmm.
has anyone done? I think a lot of most of you guys right have done a mix of label and self-release. Any advantages of that or any particular things, or maybe this isn't really even a that strong of a point, but I just figured
Well,
I'd
I
throw.
Just
have I go,
Yeah,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say I'm just going to flag up one point that sort of slipped by a few minutes ago. Sorry, I was going to
sure.
flag it up, but it's kind of if
Yeah,
you're somebody was saying about if you have the bands that have a large following, they're the labels are looking for the bands that already have a large following on artists or DJ has a large following. And I thought there's something quite odd going on there that if because we are talking about Spotify streams and getting £10 over a year or something, whatever, and then we're talking about Bandcamp, and I don't understand the logic of the smaller band with a large following going to a label to get distribution on the streamers, because then you're suddenly thrown into a very diluted pool. Whereas if you, for instance, genuinely have a large following, why wouldn't you first go on Bandcamp with your album, your
Hmm.
downloads, and your merch, and get your revenue from that and then release on the streaming? I don't understand. I think there's some technical thing with releasing via the digital platforms that it's not really a premiere if you've already put it out on Bandcamp. But for
Hmm.
somebody who has a following, I don't understand why they even bother going to Spotify first, because that just dilutes your product. Why not
Yeah.
put it out first on Bandcamp, get the revenue, get the buzz? People are playing. If it's real vinyl, real CDs, whatever, then you're actually getting people who are physically invested in playing your music and having some kind of relationship with it. And then you put out, and also we're now putting out an extended version on Spotify. Check it out. I don't understand why it's the other way around a lot of the time. Now we put it on Bandcamp. Hey, we've listened to it on Spotify, and we don't really want to buy the vinyl now. I don't understand the logic, but it seems to be everywhere that Spotify comes first, and it really doesn't. I mean, surely, am I wrong
Yeah.
here?
well, Tobias, what I'm thinking is like maybe a couple things. Like one, Spotify. It depends. Like me, I mean, years ago, I actually used to listen to Spotify a lot more. Now I mainly listen to SoundCloud, or maybe I get music discovery from social media. But so maybe people feel like, that's where the people are, especially a lot more younger people, some older people
Yeah,
too.
but you
But
could do it both ways, couldn't you? Because if you have the following, people will be invested in either a t-shirt or any of the
Yeah.
merch that Spotify tries to jump in on as well. Just do all that through
yeah,
Bandcamp to start with. See what your email list turns out, your database and so forth, and then you hit the streamers with and then you start pushing based on what you've got from your fans on Bandcamp, or something similar. I don't know if it's the best example, but it seems that if you go the other way, you're just lost in the
Hmm.
ocean, aren't you?
well, for
Yeah.
example, too,
Yeah.
Tobias, like Katie, Ember Bloom, Katie, who I think is going to join in our later group tonight. Yeah, I looked at her Bandcamp recently, and the cool thing about Bandcamp, and I'm not a big expert on it, but I've seen I know a little bit about it. You can see like who like it shows you like who your main backers are, and it kind of shows kind of like what I try to do with ElectroFans Connect. Say, okay, here's the latest members, and to kind of show like upward momentum. And so
Yeah.
I think Tobias, the last thing I'd say is I feel like maybe a lot of artists um, some labels too just feel like, well, at least with Spotify, it is potential to make money, even though I still feel like you're only earning pennies on your, for your time. But you
Yeah,
know.
no, I agree with you. I don't want to
Actually,
sound retro there, but I think the thing is, one album sale on Bandcamp is going to cover you just an
Yeah,
unbelievable amount of streams on Spotify.
sure,
So
I
I
believe
think
it. Yeah.
people should tailor to their style, and they maybe do like a staggered release.
Hmm.
Really kind of see what they can leverage. But I think going, as I say, I still feel that going straight to the big ocean of Spotify is not necessarily the best route, because unless you go viral quickly, you could have made that in one sale on Bandcamp.
actually, that is maybe something that could work as well, but it's a lot of work. It's radio rotation. I'm not talking about the nationals, but if you arrive to have a lot of regional radios, you can make a certain amount of money from that.
Mm.
And
And you've
that's
actually got
really
a bit of people
important.
listening as
A
well.
lot of artists are really forgetting about that, and they think, oh, it's a little radio. But if you are
Mm-mm.
played even 10 times or 5 or 10 times a day, right, in each radio, that makes a massive amount of plays. And those plays by sorry, I forgot the name, but the labels didn't even have this money because it goes directly by
The
here in
PRO
France is
songwriters, yeah.
SACEM, right?
Hmm.
ASCAP, I believe
Mhm.
And
in
BMI.
US,
Yeah.
yeah,
EMI, yeah.
EMC,
Yeah, to the PRO,
and
the
you
Publishing
can,
Rights Organization.
yeah, you can make a certain amount of money from that. And we are, with those Spotify and stuff like that, we are pretty much forgetting about that way.
Yeah, you just brought up another point of a pro part of the label is we've gotten European radio play
Mm.
because of the label. I would have never had a song on the radio
Mm.
in Europe if it weren't for the radio or for the label. I
Mm.
would have never been able to have that connection. So another pro. Sorry, I just sidebarred. Sorry.
No, that's great, Jeff, because I was thinking we can already start winding down like some of the, are there particular, which is kind of, I mean, the answer is, I think, of course, no. There's not a set, there's not, maybe for some people, maybe there are like a set, oh, definitely it's better to do label or definitely better to do self-release, but, kind of figure we could close on, are there set? I think maybe it kind of depends on what we've all said today, like what Phil said, Wilson and Tobias and Felix. It's really, and I agree with a lot of that. It's really finding Jeff too, like the fit. And sometimes people are lucky they find fit with their work with the artist, with a label that can give them big reach. It's kind of like the
Yeah.
people that work with Anjuna. You could say they're lucky, but and of course there's more than money. We're all doing this. No one here is making that much money. We're all doing this because
No.
we love that. And also a big point too that I point out is that I think as Phil and I think Jay from Recordings alluded to, it's a learning process. Like you
Yeah.
can maybe learn a lot doing your own. I think Phil pointed out doing your own release, but you can, if you go with a label, you can learn from. It's kind of like like a little fish jumping on a big whale. You can kind of
Yep.
Yeah.
learn from that largesse. Like Jeff said, you get the exposure. Yeah, Icon's creating evil art is.
May I say
I
something
mean,
here?
yeah.
That is one of the reasons I created my label. It's because it was a good way for me to learn how this industry works. So by
Mhm.
going through how the distribution, how the royalties, how the this, how the that works, I learned a lot of things. So that when I discuss with the label, when I want to release on another label, I know
Mhm.
what they want and how they would think, and this has helped me a lot to be on both sides.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
You
it's
know what
harder to get
mechanical
scammed.
royalties are.
Yeah.
Many people don't. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think too, I agree with that because I think even if you don't do like all of your marketing yourself or all of, your publishing, at least having a basic idea will keep you from getting scammed by somebody. Like if you
Yeah.
do put an album out with somebody with a label and then they're like, "Oh, we need you to give all this for marketing." And you go, "Okay, well, where's this going?" You kind of have an idea of where that money's going so you can
Yeah.
know that, "Hey, this isn't right. Let me call my lawyer real quick," or something like that. Because
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
you got to be able to protect yourself and like you said,
Absolutely.
JP, having that knowledge of how the industry works allows you to be able to make informed decisions. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you were talking about like the money part of things, right? So like with the art and my outward facing visor stuff, I never do that for money. I do that because I love what I'm doing with the features.
However, all of that, plus being signed to labels, led me to now doing commercial work.
Hmm.
So I do make a living in this business, but I don't make it off of visors. But had I not signed to major labels, I would have never
Exactly.
had
Yep.
those introductions to those people who now hit me up and say, hey, we need this thing for Netflix in 3 days.
Yep.
And a lot of it's on spec. Of course, a lot of it's on spec. But again, I still get paid when it's placed, right? So it's like I would have never had that access unless I signed to a label, ever.
The opportunities it can provide. Yeah, that's a great, yeah, again, kind of we've been doing here through ELECTROFANS Connect. Yeah, there were
Yeah.
two DJs that I just sent intro emails to last night that are both in Las Vegas. And it's like, I think, who knows? I figured, well, they both had similar styles, a couple of really cool female DJs. I'm like, intro one to the other. And yeah, of course, JP and Lorna getting a collab with the first lady of freaking trance, Jan
I
Johnson.
love that. I love
I
that
can't
so
wait.
much.
That's coming out in 2 days, you guys. Yeah, I'm
I
definitely.
can't wait.
I mean, I'm really proud, and it's not just a
Yeah.
little thing, but the fact that it literally was, as they've very nicely mentioned too, that it came about from California-based portal. This guy Kevin Pajak and Electrons
Yes.
Connect. It's so freaking awesome. I mean, Jan Johnson is like one of the most talented. I mean, you listen to her voice, and it's like, oh, shit, this woman. I
Yeah.
mean, she's like a singer, man. She's one of the most
Yeah.
talented and
Yeah,
well-known names in dance
I
music
was
history.
I was really listening to one of these CDs I have from the late 90s. You know,
2000s,
this
yeah.
dance music. Yeah, one of these
Yeah.
trance CDs, and I
Yeah.
was saying, but that's her. That was Jan
I know,
Johnston
man.
singing. I was saying, well,
BT, Tiesto,
yeah,
it's
but
like
exactly. It's just, how
shit.
so lucky I am to be able to doing a song. And she's such a lovely lady. But when I talk with
Yeah,
her, she's always positive and
I
so,
believe it. Yeah.
But
She did
guys,
it.
but guys, Kevin and everyone here, this is why I do it. I do it because
Mhm.
of these relationships and
Oh,
meeting
yeah.
people
yeah,
with the same
Jay and all of us. Oh,
dynamic.
yeah. Yeah.
And never forget as well that big labels look up on the small labels. If you
yeah.
go to a small label, you could be found out by a big
Oh,
label.
yeah. I think the thing, man, is that they do it, but they don't let people know they're doing it. But they have their secret. I think I call me mad, but I think that Electrofans is on a secret. I mean, I still get promos from Pure Trance all the time. I think I could be on their secret stash. You know what I'm saying? Like Electrofan stuff is secret. We're up to like 8,000 combined followers now. We're
That's awesome.
Instagram, we've been hot. We're pushing on 2,000 now. And as a lot of people know, organically, that is hard to do that,
That's
man. That's
super
like
hard.
combat hand-to-hand fighting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My,
I
my,
call it.
my,
It's like
my Instagram literally goes to 966 and then 962,
that's
967,
SoundCloud. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
962.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
I
like, oh,
know.
whatever.
That's because of all the ridiculous sex bots and the OnlyFans accounts, and
Yeah.
it's. I noticed they're on Threads now too, and they're now on Threads. So
Yeah.
it's funny that even I'm sure all you guys see this too. Just the fact to see that who has seen your story, these sex
Hmm.
bot accounts, just the fact that they've been seen in the liker list or the
Yeah.
like. You're really benefiting from this, but whatever.
No, no.
Just the
Talking of
vagaries of social media.
sorry, Kevin. So
Yeah.
talking of I don't know. Does anybody else get the thrill that I do what I really like about distributing digitally is the really small details, like with Shazam, and you go, oh, there's a few Shazams recently. You look at it, and it's
Oh,
like, oh,
yeah,
some
yeah.
bar
Yeah.
in Croatia, and you go, wow, somebody's playing my tune, and in
Yeah.
Croatia, fantastic. It's
Well,
so thrilling. It feels really personal and makes
yeah,
everything feel like
yeah.
worth it. Just those
Yeah.
small details.
That's
SoundCloud gives you
the
that feedback too. Yeah, who your top
It was
that's
so
the
fans.
beauty. That's
yeah.
the
Yeah,
beauty
Yeah.
of it. After 16, 20 years, you got the thrill, actually.
Yes.
Mhm.
You know,
Yes.
you release a track and you feel okay, that's the one, and I worked on it and it's perfect, and maybe not, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, yeah,
perfect
maybe
at the
yeah,
not.
moment. But you hate that because you passed a lot of time making it at the same
Yes.
time, right? You hate and you love, and it's really a strange feeling. But after, yeah, 15, 20 years, you got that thrill, and that's amazing.
The
yeah.
thrill about that also is something we didn't mention is maybe something doesn't happen for that track as soon as you release it,
Yep.
but it's out there now. and you never know
Yeah.
who's going to come across it, and you
Yeah.
never
It,
know.
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah,
happened to me. It
And
happened to me.
yeah.
A track that I released in 2015, actually, and I totally forgot about that. And 4 years later, right? Um, I I begin to have some, uh, uh, notifications, right, about the track about in Japan, and I was like, "Fuck's sake, what's that?" I didn't have any release at the moment. 2019, I didn't have anything, and notification from Japan, and I just discovered that a guy there, a nice DJ, a real big Japanese DJ in Japan, so
was it
national,
06R? Sorry. Well,
that just
wasn't that the guy
um
JP 06R? That
I
04.
I don't know, but he played
sorry.
that. He played that, and then it was just hitting, right?
That's
Mm,
all.
And that's
yeah.
amazing.
I
A
love
four
that,
years
and
track.
I love
Yeah.
that. And Tobias, to your point with the Shazam, one of the most thrilling things that ever happened to me was I went into a Starbucks and my song was playing, and
No shit.
I Shazammed it just to see it, and I was like,
Whoa.
that's real. That's
Wow.
real. Yeah, like that's a real thing. Someone
Wow.
could just do this. They could see, like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's
Well,
thrilling. I love it. Yeah.
that reminds me too of like Instagram. Like for some reason, I can never, when you try to, it says, I just saw this a night or two ago. So like stories, post that have music, get whatever more. I can never, I think I typed in JP Launch here and I never get any kind of thing, most things I'm searching for, unless it's maybe like really, really huge name like Beyonce or like Snoop Dogg, like some mega platter name. It never comes out for me, but I always see people that get their tracks. There must be a secret way. I have to Google that to look that up. But to your point too, Jeff, like yeah, you made me think of like yeah, like I'm thinking of the term like cross marketing, right? Like
Yeah.
any track. I still have people that that says, oh, so and so liked your track Masters of the Deep House, that we did maybe like 5 years ago. So the point being, any track that you have is like your catalog, whether you're an outlet or an independent producer or a label. People like one thing, they come in and they explore your other offerings,
Yes.
and they like other things based on initially coming in on one track. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. That's the best part of all this. I did a video on Instagram that got absolute. It was the one video I thought would get all this kind of like, because I was like, oh, I'm telling people how great the creative process was. And it got like 5 likes. And I was like, oh, okay.
yeah,
But I had to tell that story because to me it was really important for my own good to say, hey, you created something from nothing.
yeah.
And now it exists in the world.
It's
Like
out there. Yep,
that's it.
yep,
That's the most
yep.
important part. It's not the
And
streams necessarily, but I did something and now it exists. I think
you're
that's
right.
amazing.
Success
Yeah.
is when you freaking hit the record button, man, and you
Right,
press the
right,
press
right, right.
play.
I agree.
That's
I totally agree. I
That's
totally
true.
agree.
Yeah, well, guys, yeah, any last kind of things like so again, I mean, I think there's not any, of course, there's not any, I think it depends on the artist and the label. I mean, I guess this meetup really is not really looking at the label side as much as the producer side. Like,
Yeah.
probably what's best for you as an individual producer. Maybe in a lot of you guys' cases, it's a mix of, I think everyone here is probably mixed on, done some label releases and some self releases, or
Yeah.
in three, maybe four, you guys' cases, done your own label. And I think the takeaways are, yeah, looking for the relationships, however you do it, is some of the advantage and growth and like future proofing and learning along the way. You can learn a lot,
Yeah.
whether you're run your own label or be independent. Yeah, I guess some closing thoughts on, I mean, are you guys really bullish on independent or self, or just sort of like take or advice for producers out there too? I guess you guys could,
I I had just one last thing to say that I didn't
yeah,
think about earlier as far as when we're talking about signing or not signing. And one of the other things that I didn't mention was we have, if we need it, we have a production budget as well. So if there's something I'm having a hard time mixing, and I'm like, oh, I know he's going to mix it really well for $250, I just go to the label and say, give me $250. And they say, okay. So then I just go pay him and get it done. Or they in-house master, and the guy's a genius. So, so there is a production budget as well when we
Okay.
need it. Now, I don't go crazy with it because I don't want to I don't want to get a bad thing there. But if I need the money, they always tend to give it to me. So
Okay. So relying on the large house of a bigger label. Okay.
yeah, just
Okay.
just one thought. Yeah, I didn't mention earlier. Yeah,
Great. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
I think it just depends where you are and what
Yeah.
kind of producer you want to be.
yeah,
Because I know Jeff has a very like, you're in it right now, so you kind of
yeah,
have more experience, but from people I've spoken to and talked to, I know that a lot of like labels nowadays are just looking for artists who are already kind of making it to just kind of
yeah,
put
Mm,
gasoline on the fire per se,
mhm.
and pump money in
yeah,
there and pump resources, and which is I think is when you get to a certain point you kind of need that because you can only
yeah.
grow so much, and you hit that kind of plateau and wall. So I think if you're like just starting out and you want to kind of get your feet wet, kind of figure out your sound and who you are as a producer, I'd say maybe do a mix. Find a label you're comfortable with, release some tracks there. If you have a great experience, keep building on it. Release some stuff on the side so you can kind of get experience there. And then I think just go for it because
Hmm.
it's really up to you as a producer and you as your career. I mean, in my case, like I got my first sync like years after I had been releasing and doing stuff, and it was on a old track in my back catalog that I had forgot about, like we all were
Wow.
talking about. And so I think you never really know what opportunities are gonna come up from the relationships and the type of people you get involved with. So just kind of hit the ground running. Like the worst thing you can do is not release stuff, I think. Like at the end of
Yes.
the
You're
day, you just
right.
need to
Yeah,
put
You're
yeah.
stuff
right.
out.
Yes.
Like, and I'm
Content
Yes.
is
terrible at
king.
that.
I know. We
I'm terrible
discussed
at that
that.
Yes.
problem.
Yep.
But if it's sitting on your hard drive, it's not doing anything for you. Like you got to put it
Yep.
No.
out and then just keep growing, grow from it, move to the
Yeah.
next one, and then see what happens with it. So
Learn as you
Yeah,
go.
Phil, we
Yep.
didn't
that's where
have
I'm at.
Phil, that's where we were at a certain point because we didn't have enough releases. So labels were like, well, you don't have enough
Hmm.
out. So it was like I had to build the resume, but I was lucky enough to have labels drop a single, a single, a single. But like
Right.
until I got the resume up,
Yep.
you're never
Yeah,
gonna
because
get
that's
that big deal.
I love how you say resume because that's how I think about it too. Your music is your body of work. It's like it's your proof. Like this is what I
Yeah.
do. This is who I am. Like even
Yeah.
smaller labels are gonna want to see and hear something to make that
Yeah.
first decision. So it's like, you know, just put it out there. Like don't be afraid
Yeah.
to put it out there. I think that's my
I
take
agree.
on it.
Yeah. And I think Felix has said, yeah, they've worked with I think a lot of labels some producers that maybe that was their first release and
Hmm.
everyone's got to start somewhere.
Yep.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Felix,
And
any, yeah.
I would also say that I think as producers' perspective, everyone should have self-release at one point, whether your first track is a free download available for
Hmm.
anyone to have a check. That counts as self-releasing. Like a bootleg remix out there is also a self-releasing, even though you don't have the copyrights, but it's still a free download. It's still sort of a kind of releasing in quotations.
Hmm.
And I would say that whether you will consider self-releasing, whether you are at which stage of production you are, whether you are just starting to produce and release your first track, or you're already established and you would consider self-releasing yourself or even start a label yourself, or still relying on different kinds of scales of labels out there. Yeah, it depends on what you want.
Hmm.
Like we have discussed a lot, whether you want is the production part from the label, whether you want the community side with different artists. Like there are a lot of examples out there, like JP's label, and whether you want to gain really solely for money, so that you would
Right,
consider
right.
just self-releasing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's totally fine. But one point you need to think that what's your position in the whole music spectrum,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially like nowadays, internet, social media, we discuss a lot, whether you're throwing yourself into a void or you're just trying to spark a chance to grasp the attention to potential audience. That's your choice and depends on how you take it, whether you do it yourself or have a label. Yeah, that's it.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Mhm.
Tobias, any closing thoughts?
I think it doesn't seem like there's a particularly overarching route that anyone should go or we should advise on
Yeah.
because it's always different. But it does. It's probably quite an exciting time because there's been so many
Hmm.
developments, and some of them are going to disappear over time, aren't they? And I think
Yeah.
as we sort of briefly hinted earlier with the AI thing, that's going to change how all these platforms work because there'll be a lot of people who are making a lot of money through their managerial and I can make you famous type schemes that are going to have to disappear because
Yeah.
if we really can do it all ourselves, I'd be interested to see all the AIs battling out in the internet for
I just
virtual
saw
managers
last
fighting
night,
each
sorry to
other.
interrupt. I think it was a thing on Facebook from Bill Gates, and he said that in 10 years, humans are not going to be needed for most things, even like doctors, teachers, and we'll see. I know what it's going to be like, and even 2 to 5, let alone, yeah,
Well,
in
well,
music. And
We'll
I
all,
read I read something the other day and it's just a quick thing about the AI, but they to see if music was made with AI, they use AI to run it through.
yeah.
What?
Yeah, so
yeah,
they run a song through AI to see if there's AI in the song.
oh my God,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, because there are a lot of AI like producing music out there which
A lot.
mm,
cause a lot of craze. Like Suno or some kind of these kind of services, they just release it as their own without
Yeah.
regarding it as AI products, which is quite concerning.
Yeah. I
yeah. And of
agree.
Yeah,
course, they just said on SoundCloud that now, that you probably may have seen that too, probably right, that it could be opening up. I think Jay had a concern about like Spotify saying we can take your
yeah.
music and for for our bots to chew on for AI learning purposes. I think they said SoundCloud is,
Mm.
Wow.
and yeah, I know it's going to be an evolving landscape for music and
Well,
everything.
this sounds like a whole other talk, and we can
Oh
also discuss
yeah, oh it is. Yeah, Jeff.
how,
AI is
our
one whole thing I want to do this
Yeah,
later
yeah.
this year.
Because
Yeah.
there's a lot to say about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jay, I feel like he'll deny it, but I think he's an expert. Like when he mentioned that, like how scraping over, like, dude, let's talk offline. I don't want to get on there like
right.
scraping hundreds of thousands of emails.
So back in my day, I had to go to all the sites myself and write them all
Yeah.
Exactly.
down.
Copy and paste. I still
Yep.
do that. I should
Amazing.
use AI a lot more to be efficient. Yeah. But I'm sorry, Tobias, you were saying
No,
something.
I think there's going to be this. I don't know if this is on topic or not, but I think
It's okay.
it seems to me that what has to happen is that with the rise of AI, it's going to be a boom in the live music scene and the ability
Hmm.
to have more
Organic.
meetings and more
Yeah.
clubs and more live events. It's just going to be
Hmm.
this hunger for it is going to become
Mm-hmm.
really strong. I
Mm-hmm.
can't, time might prove me wrong, but that seems like the next step. People are just going to go, I can't be bothered with this, being
Yeah.
fed a playlist of AI bots, and just they're going to be down the local, open mic, and they're going to be at the big venues and the little bars, and
Yeah.
it's just going to be a much more. It's going to go back to some of the
It's
early
gonna go
roots.
back. It's
I'm
gonna
not
go
Mm.
back.
excited by
Yeah.
it.
Well, I even
Yeah,
put guys on the footer months, maybe a year or so ago, or two, I don't know. And on the footer of every page site wide, electrofans.com, created with love by humans, not bots, in San
Yes.
Francisco, London, Paris, Gold Coast, Australia,
Yeah, yeah.
Houston, Texas,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
humans, not bots. I think that's already there, the thirst
I'm
for
seeing
that.
that at the end of movies too. We've been watching a lot of movies at the Directors Guild, which is just amazing. And at the end of movies now, it'll say "made by humans."
Really? So they're
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, Wilson, I think you covered that. Yeah, the human touch, being humans, the human
Being
touch,
Yeah.
humans,
whatever
yeah.
works, the
And
relationship development.
that
Yeah.
was the idea, the same humans out loud, like it's humans shouting out loud, right?
Yeah.
It's
Mm.
we are here, guys, and we are not here to disappear.
I love
And
it.
being humans became from that. We are humans, and we stay humans.
Even though we do use computers and it's electronic music, I know I thought of that
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
but
But
it's
comparatively, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? 30 years ago, when people were doing electronic music and everyone was like, "Oh, that's not real music,"
Yeah.
and now it's real
Yeah.
music, and then AI is like not real music. So like,
Mm.
yeah. So
when
it's
does
crazy.
the AI will become maybe a base for the work? to become real music, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I saw something the other day where this guy ran like a, one of those like MIDI controller devices. He worked for some company. It said it created like 9 or 10 different deep house things in a clip. That was kind of the thing. But I mean, I guess it depends, But to
Yeah.
me, even if we're using computers, the fact that JP, for example, when he crafted, I use the word crafted, structured his remix for Jan Johnston. I think the difference is he used his physical organic matter, the gray matter of his
Yeah.
brain. He thought, okay, because you can see he kind of had a refined approach and kind of held back because Jan Johnston, you don't want to like boom boom like overcrowd
Yeah.
her voice. And yeah, I think you can see that in JP's remix. A lot of subtleties, he took care to structure the rhythm and yeah, he has great presence in his mixing, but yeah, I'm sure I'm right, JP. You want to leave all kinds of room for JP's for JP for Jan's vocals to shine, and you kind of want to play like the undertow, like the
Yeah,
background underneath it.
plus leave the piano of from
Yeah,
Lorna
AI
shine
could
too.
do
I
that,
mean,
but the difference is
yeah,
JP used
probably
his
could.
brain
Yeah,
to do that. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
yeah.
Well,
I
that's the
haven't used.
thing. Yeah.
So
That's the thing about the collaborative process that I think gets
yeah,
lost in electronic
yeah,
music sometimes is
yeah,
that, so like when I was in bands growing up, what came out was the equivalent of four different people. It wasn't, you know
Mm-mm.
what I mean? We four people made that music, and that's how it will always come out with those four people or whatever it is. So I like to collaborate as much as possible because then I'm feeding off them and they're feeding off me, and it comes out differently than
yeah,
if I just sat in a dark room and noodled, you know what I mean? So I
exactly.
prefer working with people. Yeah.
The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I'm thinking of JP and Jan and Laura. Exactly. That might be the tagline of JP when I write that article. The whole is being greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We need
Yeah.
more of that, guys. We need more of that collaboration with all of us on some music coming up. I love that.
It's right
Yeah,
here, yeah. And so yeah, I mean, like I say, hold that thought, guys, for streaming platform stuff, social media, and AI. I think those are three, especially social media and AI, and they kind of can bundle together. Those are going to
Yeah.
be, I figured, man, the social media talk will be so big. And I know I asked JP probably a year and a half ago, any secrets, and like I wish I knew like some social media hacks and
I'm
secrets,
hoping
but
to learn from you guys because I'm at a loss with that stuff.
JP has taught me
uh,
stuff, and I know
yeah, but
Jay
we are
has.
all bad at social media anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like they're changing it all the time too. Like the tech
Yeah.
bros that work at Instagram,
Yeah, yeah.
they're changing it all the time. Yeah, I think so. It's an evolving thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, guys. So it's been awesome talking. This has been the ElectroFans Connect meetup on tips for producers on self-release versus label releasing. And again, just an overview of what Connect is. It's sort of like a combination think tank and community for any electronic music professional. So if you're a DJ or producer, label head promoter out there, you want to join in the fun with us, just hop on to electrofans.com/connect, sign up for free. We have meetups all the time, topic centered, and we also have basically like access to resources too. So our goal is, as you see in our my new my new sticker kind of thing there, learn, collab, and grow. So yeah, thanks to everybody for tuning in today, and huge thanks to our awesome panelists and Lorna and Jay who were on earlier. And it's going to be awesome to chop this up and get some samples out there. But yeah, thanks so
Yeah.
much, guys, for hopping
Thanks
on
to you.
today, and we'll see you on
Thanks
the
for
flip
having me.
side.
It's an honor. Thank
Uh,
you.
Yeah,
yeah, it's
appreciate you
very cool.
guys.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
So take care,
Bye.
guys,
See you,
and we'll see you
everybody.
next time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
All
Thanks so
right.
much. Take
See
care now, guys.
you.
Yep.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Ciao.